Hello, friends, and welcome back to this week's episode of Thank You, Come Again. Today, I am joined by Sullivan, founder of SullyTyler.com, eComm growers, and the recently acquired D2C brand BombTech Golf. Today, we're going to be digging deeper into the BombTech story, how he approached customer retention, and strategies for getting folks to come back and buy again with larger ticket items. But first, Sully, thanks for joining the show, man. How are you?
I made it finally. No, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Love the name of the show. You killed that intro. That's probably a top 10 intro. So congrats on that, dude.
Appreciate it, man. I do my best for the audience, but I heard you actually mention, I think it was a UVM podcast, that they had the best intro. So maybe I got some room to improve there
That
on
was
getting the
pretty
intro
close.
better.
That was pretty close to it. A lot of times on these pods, there's multiple takes. So one take is you're already in the top 5% right there.
Love it. I'm gonna put that on the website there, top
Yes,
5%.
there you go.
But so anyways, man, I've been following you for a while now. It's great to finally get to chat. Huge fan of BombTech, your story. I think it's one of immense entrepreneurial spirit, hustle, and really creating an awesome product and category. I think there and would love. I'm sure you've shared this a ton of times, but can you just share a little bit of like the BombTech origin story for our audience?
Yeah, so this is dating me way back. 2012 is when I first had the idea. And, I kind of came into it with no expectations of making or selling a single product. I was in sales doing, medical device, pharmaceutical sales, and like this technical engineering sales, just did everything sales wise. And was frankly pretty bored and just was not a good employee. So I started, competing in this hobby of mine, home run derby of golf, they call World Long Drive. And I was like the worst competitor ever. But I became obsessed with golf again after, falling out of love with it. And all I did was try to hit the ball as hard as I could. My longest to date was 360. And the guys were hitting like 440. So it was cool, but it was just a fun thing to do. And during that obsession, I started breaking golf clubs that I had a local club builder assembling for me. And I just started assembling my own because I had no money and I couldn't afford to pay him to make clubs that broke because I wanted to compete. And then a buddy of mine's like, hey, can I buy one of those? I was like, okay, cool. And then I had this weird idea to make a website. And this is 2012. So whipping up a website was not as easy as it is now. And I made the world's worst website. Like literally, it was like a cartoon guy flexing, for sale signs flashing. And I sold nothing for 6 months. And then I was on my boat, which was not a yacht, on Lake Champlain in Vermont. And I got a ding on my phone and it was a sale. And I was like, it blew my mind. That was my first epiphany. Like, oh my God, I'm not trading time or, my time for money, but I'm on a boat and I made a sale. Like, and I think I lost mine on that sale because I think it was like Ireland.
Oh
And I
man,
didn't even have shipping calculated for that. But
sure.
that was like an aha moment, like, oh my God, I sold something on the internet. This is amazing. So I just started to do more of that. And then I was having beers with a frat brother of mine, former frat bro. And I was like, dude, I want to design my own golf club. And he's like, you're not that smart. And I'm like, yeah, you're not wrong. It took me 5 years to graduate college at UVM, but he's like, why don't you call our local college where we went to school and see if they'll help you design a product? I'm like, all right, why not? So I called them up and they said, sure, you can apply. There's a capstone project every year. I applied, I got in, and I designed a golf driver for a year with 4 students at UVM. And I cashed in my 401k and had them made. I had like 50 units made, the mold. And during that time, accidentally or coincidentally, however you want to put it, I was just documenting what I was doing on Facebook. Like just, hey guys, this is what I'm doing. It's coming soon. What kind of, what colors do you like? What lofts do you play? Just asking questions, which becomes a thesis of our success is asking and building an audience and community. And, so the product was great. I tested it. Actually, the guy next to me at the driving range was the first person to ever hit it. And yeah, he's like, what is this? I told him it's this club I designed. He hit it. He's like, oh my God, this is amazing. And he bought it. I was like, oh my God, this is so all these things just, that's like, we're already a year and a half into the story and we finally sold our first club and have no 401k. But then I used, Facebook and was able to pre-order. And I think we sold like $10,000 in our first day, which is another moment of traction. And really the next year was so tough because it was slow. This is pre like ads. I wasn't using Facebook ads, all organic. And then it was the week before Thanksgiving. And I found out my wife was pregnant and I was fired from my day job. And it was like pretty much like this week. We probably need to send an email out about that. Thank you for reminding me. Now I'm telling the
Great
story.
reminder.
Yeah. So I was fired and I was devastated, dude. I was like, always thought I'd have that job. It was a more secure job. I took a safer job than the pharma job. And I was just blindsided because sales were up like 200% there. I was killing it. And BombTech was definitely not at a full-time income. It was doing like 10, 15K a month, which sounds cool. But when you're manufacturing your own product, I mean, my cash outlay was way negative because you got to manufacture your own product. And my wife was so supportive. And like when I came home early from work, she's like, okay, cool. You got fired. Are you going to make BombTech full-time or what? And that year was probably the hardest year of my life because I had a newborn on the way and was assembling clubs myself in the basement. And, didn't have a lot of money coming in, so it was crazy. And it made me work 20 hours a day, literally every waking second I was working, trying to figure it out. And then Facebook and Facebook ads, we really just took off. We were able to dial in Facebook, just video content, getting crazy reach on stuff. Like we had 300,000 views and like 10,000 comments on one video. And it was like boosted for like $300 or something. And I literally on my BlackBerry commented to every comment until my thumbs were like bleeding.
The original conversational marketing right there. Yeah. Love it.
Yeah. And it was just one of those things where I was like, I see engagement. I don't know exactly what it's going to do, but like, let's engage. So there's all these moments of like traction, that happen. And then, I was able to scale it up with Facebook ads. Like when those came out, we went from like 450K a year, like all organic pretty much. And then next year I did it myself and I was awful at it. I did like 1.4 million. And I was just like, when is it going to stop? When are the sales going to stop? And then it went from 1.4 to 4.4 to 6.4, and I think we topped out at just shy. I don't think I could say the number, like 9.9 million. Yeah. And so I was able not to go, I don't know if you want to stop me, but then I had my second kid and I said, it's not fair to my wife and other kid to work so much. So I made a plan, to take 6 weeks off. Mm-hmm. And during that process, sales actually went up. And I said, wow, I'm really not that important anymore. And that was another epiphany because I was working so much, grinding this for years. Business was doing great, millions of dollars, And then I was like, wow, I can actually take a step back and enjoy life a little bit. And I did that for like 3-4 years where I was just running it, at a high level. I have my experts like siloed. Got my ad guy, email agency, CRO, fulfillment center, customer service. So it was just like, I'm the coordinator of bullshit, I used to call it, at a high level. And it wasn't a lot of levers to pull because I had the right people in the right place. And that's half the battle, is just finding the right experts once you have product market fit, and all that. And then to close loop this, there's a million other ways I can go with the story. But this year after COVID, I set a number last year. Said, if we hit this number, I'm going to sell it. So I sold in February. Man. And that I really haven't told many people about it because it's really my first baby. And I'm still running the company. That's part of the deal, which has been great. And it changed my life. And I would have never thought eCommerce and selling golf clubs online would have done that. But I'm so thankful I accidentally sold something online on a boat.
I mean, man, that's an amazing story. I think, just first of all, massive congratulations on the acquisition. I think what a lot of folks don't realize is that, there's a lot of work, like you mentioned, to get to that point. And as you mentioned, so many risks along the way. I think, as like potential aspiring founders or even early stage founders right now might be listening, thinking about this too. Like you talk about, taking out your 401k, the baby on the way being that sort of like immense, sort of like motivator, I think in a lot of ways, like to actually really just go all in on this. And I think that definitely is something I'm hearing from you is like, you just have to go all in on this. You have to really be, believing in the process, but also continuing to just kind of like, like for what I'm hearing as well is, like kind of like that product market fit takes a little bit of time to figure out, I think, in a category like this too. So I mean, dude, a lot of great stuff, I think, just to kind of unpack, even in like kind of, we can talk about, as you kind of grew the business and the retention and all that different stuff as well. But what was it like to get acquired? I mean, was that something that, I mean, like you kind of knew starting the company that you wanted to, sell one day? Was it just sort of like, building and building? Just curious, like how that kind of process was for you.
Yeah, I had no expectations when I started BombTech of it to even make a dollar or sell a club. So to think of it to sell it was not even like, I think that was the beauty of what I did, as I had no experience and was naive. And I just was doing what was fun, and where there was traction, I was going. Versus, I think if I had expectations and said, "Hey, if I don't make $1 million or sell a million clubs or whatever in this amount of time," I think it would have turned into work. So I think that was the beauty in it. It was like, this was my side hustle. I just loved it. I had no experience, no expectations, and it allowed me to work, not feel like work, and have fun. And it kind of just, that's why I grew, versus like going in with a formalized business plan. Let's grow it in 4 years or 7 years and sell it and sell it for this. And it was really, for me, it was like, I've got 2 young kids, and the timing just felt right to me. And even though it's my first baby, it just was like, I can either keep pressing the gas and spending capital to keep growing it, or I can say, okay, this is the best that I can do with it. The brand's really strong. Customer base is, we've taken care of them, and that's like something I can always hang my hat on. We've always done well for our customers, and the time just felt right. I know that's not like a hard and fast, hey, I do it, I'm going to sell in this year for this much. And I was just trying not to get greedy either, because
Sure.
we had like 5 or 6 offers, and obviously I wanted a number that was so ridiculous because I'm so romantic about the business. But at the end of the day, it was a number that would be life changing, and I was like, okay, this feels right. I had worked so hard to set the business up in such a way it could be transferred easily. So I was dialed in and operated like that for years, for like 2 or 3 years, with the expectation that if I wanted to sell, I could. So I always try to run it. And there were moments in time where it would be unsellable. 2016, 17, I was just too involved in the day to day. The books weren't dialed in or tight enough I couldn't quickly get a P&L, so dialing the bookkeeping, dialing in, the accounting practices, and just hiring better people than myself. That's my, the core of this. It's like, I had a cool idea, cool brand, cool product, and hire better people than myself. So it felt really weird though to sell it, to be honest. It was like unemotional, but also emotional, because like when the wire hits the bank, it's just a number, and
Right.
it's just like, if that number had 5 more zeros or 10 or a couple less zeros or whatever, does your life really change? Yes, but I don't know. And everyone says this is an anticlimactic thing, and it kind of was, and it was. But now it took me like 3 or 4 months to mentally unhinge a little, because I was so stuck in 10 years of doing the same thing the same way. So that to change my mindset and how it was connected to the brand was really difficult, to let go a little bit, because I'm no longer the owner,
Sure.
But all in all, I'm so happy I did it when I did. And I'm still working there. So I'm still doing what I did. And I only work, I don't work a lot. And that was part of the deal. Is like, hey, I'll continue on with you in the same role I was, so I've got a call a couple times a month to go over certain things, and I coordinate the guys just like I used to. But that's it, so it's nothing has changed. And that was a really important thing. And I thought they would do a good job continuing the brand and the legacy. So I'm happy, man. Life is good.
I love it, dude. I'm super, super happy to hear that story. I think it's definitely, I've been around a few e-com businesses, consulting, that have gone through acquisitions. There are also ones that kind of held on a little too long, thinking that things were going to, maybe grow a little bit more. And then the valuation ended up going significantly down too. So I know it can definitely slide both ways, but, obviously had a great result. And I want to dig a little bit deeper kind of now, like into some of the ways that you really approach growing the business. You
Mhm.
mentioned, having a community, customer retention, all these different things. And also, BombTech exists, and what I would think is a pretty saturated market, or a lot of legacy brands competing in that space. Yet you clearly had something here that was differentiated. You mentioned sort of the engineering being kind of that kind of differentiator for you. So how did you approach customer acquisition as you kind of went against some of these more, I guess, larger competitors?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, since I had no expectations, I really was just trying to stay in our lane and really listen to the customer. Like just doing that alone is what made us different. Is like early on, I did every customer service phone call and email, for, oh man, this is like 2, 3 years where I was doing every single thing in the business, which was not healthy. I don't recommend people do that. But I had an intimate knowledge of who the customer was and built relationships almost one by one, and really just took care of them even when it hurt. Like, so if a shipment got lost in the mail, even early days when I had no money, I would send them a new club. And that really hurt. And it was like, oh my God, I have to do this. But I knew at the end of the day, if I was the customer, that's what I would want, and I
Right.
was the customer. So it was like, it was easy for me to just wow the customers in like almost an unscalable way. And, write handwritten thank you notes, call customers, thanking them, doing all these things, which made us unique, and kind of, I think our methodology with email and communication is like the core piece of how we were different. Not necessarily the product itself. It's like we're designed for regular golfers, right? So we don't care about pros, we don't care about retail. So that's like how we're different. But really, that's part of it. And then it's like with our emails, we ask for real feedback, and that's what
Yep.
we did early days on Facebook. Now we've got a Facebook group that's owners only. There's like, it's not a ton. I think 17, 18,000 owners in that group. And then our email list, we'll ask them. And it seems so simple, but it has a really big impact. So if we have a new product idea, like let's say I have a 64-degree wedge and a chipper, I may have, and this one small thing has so many benefits. So like I used to think I knew what everyone wanted for products, right? I'm the founder, I'm the owner, I'm a golfer, I know what people want. And that's not true. So my ego was slapped a couple times, but when I finally was like, all right, let me just ask the customers what they want. I'm always wrong. So I thought everyone wants a 64-degree wedge. Everyone, when I asked them an email, hey, what would you guys like more, 64-degree wedge next or a chipper? Vote A for 64, vote B. Like the simplest plain text email I've ever seen. We'll get like thousands of replies. And it always will be the opposite. I'll think A 64-degree and they'll go B chipper. But the beauty of that is they reply back. So they go from the spam or promotion folder to the inbox.
To the primary, right?
So that's one strategy. It doesn't work if you only send one email ever that says, hey, here's a question. It's got to be part of a whole strategy.
Sure.
And then we get actual feedback before we launch a product, which is what we want, right? And and then it just engages and they feel like they built the brand almost because they're voting and actually seeing that product come to life. So then we'll say, hey guys, you guys voted and 83% voted for the chipper. Thank you so much. Here, the chipper is going to come out on this date. And so they feel, and they are authentically driving the brand and a part of it. So those simple things we do on social, the group, and emails are our biggest revenue channel to do questions, it's just so impactful. And I think that is why we've been successful is we're not too big and we can actually listen to customers and wow them and just ask them questions that are so simple and actually reply back. And the only 2 employees I have in-house are customer service.
That's amazing.
My most
I
important guys.
I think it speaks volumes. I think to that approach. I've heard before, like when you're thinking about this, a competitive market, a lot of folks will look to competitors, and that's the wrong approach because typically there's been 6 months of R&D. They're figuring out everything, and by the time you actually go and do what they're doing, you're 6 months behind the competitor. But in a lot of ways, like the approach you took here, you're going to the source. The customer knows best. They might have shopped at those competitors already, and there's a reason, they're with your company now. I think also it's like them having that stake in driving the company forward, the innovation of the product. They feel that connectivity, even a lot of just the benefits of like hitting the primary inbox when you need to communicate to them. Like, I mean, there's so many cascading effects of this, but that to me is like as customer experience at the forefront of the business. And it seems like that was a big theme for you, and really how you built a loyal customer base, honestly.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, that is the whole reason. I mean, it's like, we're so quick to refund, send a new club, from a customer standpoint, because the word of mouth is really, it's kind of crazy, like when you see someone out in the wild or on a course with a BombTech club, and, it's not like they just bought it. They usually tell everyone they know and have people swing it because they were wowed somehow in the process, or somewhere in that process where there was enough of a story or a connection there. And that's like hard to make it tangible on the P&L and things like that. So I kind of am more of a touch feel like traction guy versus like all numbers and just the competitors are doing this, therefore we should do that. I just was listening to them and trying to give them what they want and not care, because like I can't compete because we're just so different. So it was like, I think that's how I would approach anything, especially with physical products and e-com brands. Like, you have to be humble enough to know that the customer is really who rules. And like one good example of when it went bad is I was the beer pong champ in 2005, 18 games. Thank you. At the frat house with my partner Keith. And I thought, well, because of that, I'm the customer, right? We should make a product called Beer Putt. And it was like, I'm like, this is going to kill it. It did pretty well on Facebook. And then, we usually do like a micro launch strategy where we ask, like we did before, and then we'll launch 500 units and test the market. And then that will tell us like, okay, based on that velocity, we should go into a bigger 20,000 unit production order. And this was the one time where I was so confident that I was like, nope, let's just make like 2,000 units or 5,000. It was more than 500, right? And we launched it, and it absolutely flopped. It was the worst launch of all time. I think I had to sell them at cost at the end, or lost money on it. And it's because my own ego got in the way, and I didn't really listen to my customers, and did little to find out most of the customers don't even drink beer, and they're like older. They've never played beer pong in their life. So I think there's something to be said of being humble enough to like, yes, you're the founder, you started this is your baby, but let the customers take over, and not in a micro sense of like, hey, this one guy really wants this one specific club, but at a more macro level of like, hey, what do they want? How can we help them? And just, I think you also have to have your team, especially your customer service guys, really embrace it. And if you don't have that and willing to invest internally on the team to support that mission, it's going to fall apart, So that's why I invest the most on the in-house guys that have those conversations. So really what ends up happening is, our customer doesn't have a conversation once. It's like, this is almost like an ongoing conversation for years they keep having with the same guys. Like, oh, I've got the 2.0, 3.0. And they'll talk to the customer service guys by first name. Like, hey, I've had this club for this long. What do you think about it? And like, they'll have real conversations that I don't think a lot of brands want to have, because they look at customer service and the inbox is like, it should just make us money and not be a cost center. Sure. Like the email should make us money. Customer service is a cost center. Whereas we look at it almost as the opposite of like the core of the marketing will be successful if this is working. And instead everyone's just pushing in, just hoping. And then they burn their email list and the customers are mad. And then it's hard to have repeat orders when they're pissed.
Yeah. I think that's such an interesting kind of insight too, is that one thing that I'm hearing a lot as I'm talking to more CX teams and just founders in general is like this sort of debate of like automated kind of communication with customers versus human touch points. And I mean, it seems like you've taken this human approach, having it in-house, focusing on some of the unscalable in a lot of ways. And it seems like it's been a big reason why customers feel that relationship too. I spent a lot of time at an SMS platform called Tone, and we did SMS conversations, human one-to-one conversations, and that really built relationships. It touched on a lot of what you're saying, that first name basis, reaching out again. and feeling like there's sort of like that friend at the brand that has your back as you're
Mhm.
experiencing this brand. You have questions, all these different things. But what I wanted to ask you was it always easy to do that? To really, I mean, it seems like it wasn't, and in some ways, like to be able to really focus on customer conversations, keeping it in house. Like, can you just talk a little bit more about like how you kind of viewed that, and also, I would imagine too, like keeping your CS team motivated. I would imagine is probably a big piece of that too, so they can deliver that stellar service every single conversation.
I think at some point, if you can and you have enough revenue to do that, you should separate yourself out of every part of the business. Because if you're too close to it, you're going to be too romantic and too, I would get so upset because I was doing customer service or live chat even back in the day alongside my customer service guys. Like I was literally in the weeds, in the trenches with them, fighting the fight. And because I'm the owner and was so, I would get upset and like I would not do as good a job as them because although they love the brand, they're slightly more disconnected and could be more logical. Like, hey, no problem, we'll send you a new club. So all I have to do is like find the right guys, which I've had for years now, and I don't manage them at all. I literally trust them so much. They take their own days when they want. They coordinate with the other guys. So they're like literally doing their own thing. And I gave them the autonomy to do that. And all I taught them early on was like, hey, you're trained to do the unexpected at any cost. So if someone's expecting to not get a refund for something, or they expect like the baseline customer service experience, just do the unexpected. Do something that wow them. So instead of being like, hey, your club's going to be 2 days late, what is something they wouldn't expect? Be like, we'll just ship you another one. If you keep that other one and give it to a buddy, like just do something that wows them. And like, if you can just make even a couple moments like that in the customer journey over time, it's like so much more impactful. And then it softens, like when you want to do a promo or you want to launch a new product, it just makes everything easier. And it's not, I think because I don't micromanage those guys, they can do their job well. They work remotely. I really don't even talk to them unless they have something they want to talk to me about. I can see in our Help Scout platform, like what the customer ratings are. And one thing we do, I know we're going deep on the customer journey, but it is a big part of it, is like, I just give them actionable things they can do. Like do the unexpected means something, but what does that really mean? So like if someone gives us a bad rating on satisfaction score from Help Scout, we'll actually go in and follow up. Right. And it takes 2 seconds. It says, hey, I saw you weren't happy with this. And it's not like, hey, it's just an automated bullshit. Like, hey, what can we do better? It's like, hey, I saw that your club, you didn't like the loft on that club. May I suggest this club? It's better loft. And guess what? It's already on the way. So it's taking a different approach. So for me, I had to detach myself from a lot of stuff to run it better. And I think that's really hard. And most people, or at least myself, I got so stuck in the day-to-day that it took me my second child to realize, okay, this is a business. I should operate like the owner, not like someone in the weeds messing stuff up. Because it got to a point where I was messing with the website, messing with email, messing with different stuff that I need to let the experts do what they do and trust your team and let them run with it versus me micromanage and mess stuff up. And one of the worst years we ever had in the history was like 16, or it was way back. I tested every marketing strategy, tactic, hack, and I just was in the weeds, messing stuff up. Whereas if I trusted the team, we would have crushed it. So that's probably the hardest part, is if you do have success, congrats, but then you need to find people smart and let them really do what they do. And that took me 2 kids to figure out,
Sure. And I think, a lot of that too, I imagine, was, you laid the groundwork in the early years of the company and building those frameworks and principles and empowering your employees too, to be able to carry that and kind of carry the torch as well. Like with those surprise and delight moments and being able to just kind of act, a little bit more autonomy. Like that's what I hear as well from a lot of founders, I think, that have kind of figured it out, is that they realize that, they need to empower their team. They need to get people around them in the room that, like it's okay not to be the smartest person in the room on literally every topic, but if you kind of know a little bit about everything, I think it makes you just that much more of an effective leader to be able to, have that opportunity. And I think something you mentioned too, I mean, like I'm hearing this a lot too, is like investing in the unscalable with CX is sort of like that differentiator, I think. And like, even thinking about, legacy brands or being in a competitive, market, like a lot of times those brands don't feel approachable. And you took the opposite path here of being that approachable brand and building that relationship. I love that a lot. I want to kind of shift gears a little bit and ask you, so you've got this claim on the website that says, "I personally guarantee that these are the best golf clubs and you'll love them. If for any reason within your first 60 days on the course you don't love them, you can literally send them back for any reason." You've kind of touched on this a little bit already, but that's definitely a claim I think a lot of brands want to make or stand behind their products, but maybe are scared because of margins or just, maybe like bad actors. But I think you mentioned you saw like less than a 5% return rate on that, which is really impressive. Why the bold claim, and really how did you manage to stay profitable with something like that?
Yeah, now it's for Black Friday, it's 180 day.
Oh,
We're
wow.
doing
Okay.
well during the winter. A lot of guys, and this is again, is all coming from if I was the customer, because like our number one thing is we were direct consumer. It really didn't exist when we launched. So the number one complaint or barrier to entry or barrier to sale was like, where can I go swing it? That's why I used to always hear like, hey, where can I demo it? And I was like, oh my God, I can't be everywhere. And when I was doing demo days, you just couldn't hit enough people. I'd see, I'd sell 3 clubs because there was only 5-10 people that showed up for a demo. So it wasn't scalable. So I said, well, how can we actually give confidence with a product that the first time you hit it becomes used? You can't just send it back like closed. And I was like, well, we might as well just let them try it. Like that's the only way we're going to be able to sell these things online and be confident that the product's great. So like early days was really interesting because I would have, and this is when I was talking to every customer, I would have guys call me up. Oh my God, this club's fantastic. I outdrove my buddies. I hit it so straight. I'm loving it. 2 weeks later, this is like when the brand was brand new. They're like, hey man, just send it back. I'd be like, what do you mean, dude? They're like, well, it's just not a brand that everyone knows. And, my buddies were giving me crap because it wasn't. I was like, oh my God. So it's definitely an uphill battle. But that for us, I just had enough confidence in the product and our price point's competitive enough that, we could do it. And the return rate, luckily, has always been really low. And I think it's because the product's good, we ship fast, and we take care of customers. So I think we probably have a lot less returns than we normally would if we didn't do all the post-purchase things to wow them. So we do like thank you voicemails, we do handwritten thank you cards, then we have the Facebook group, and then we do thank you video. So it's like four points that indoctrinate them, and it's so they can connect. And it's like we want them to do it, and we really do thank them. And I think that's maybe a missing part of like, if I started this brand to make money, you may not really care. But sure. I was just a golfer starting a golf brand. So guess what? I really cared. So like, I really wanted to thank them. And I think maybe a lot of times if it's money driven and you're just a smart entrepreneur and you see e-commerce as a revenue op, or make income, maybe you do that. But like for me, I was like, I just want to thank these guys, so like I did a lot of stuff, and the guys now will still do the thank you videos with Buongiorno, which is really cool. And it's like, we can't send everyone one, but if we spend an hour a day or half hour of just sending these videos, it's just extra effort, and it's just like those little pieces of extra effort will probably make that experience of the product. Like, let's say he hits it the same without that versus those things. He may not return it because he was just wowed and loves the brand and now thinks differently when he swings it. Whereas if he just bought it online, had no relationship, maybe that would change, because golf is so mental too, which is always the hardest part. Because I know the product can stand up and it's all awesome products, but it's so mental. So I think doing these things and just truly thanking them makes it almost more than just a product, which is like, end of the day, it's I wouldn't say they're commodities, but it makes us unique because we're just putting in a little more effort. And it's not that hard to put in the effort. I think you just have to have a founder or someone at the core that really does thank them. And if they don't, maybe they shouldn't be in business.
That's a great mindset to have and to call out, I think, as well, is like, you got to really think about what's core to your business strategy. And if customers really are at the center of that, like a lot of brands say they're customer centric, but I
Hmm.
mean, if you can't really stand behind a product, you can't connect with your customers. I love that, video, being able to send that to a customer. I'm
So
a
quick too. It's just a little
super
effort.
quick.
It's like just got to do it though. But a lot of people just don't want to do it.
And I think that that goes a long way in building that, even like as they're testing out the product, they're like, man, like this company's really going the extra mile to connect with me, make sure I have that experience. I'm going to be less likely to return that product, take advantage of that. It really just gives me that peace of mind. I think about, I'm an avid runner and I shop with Roadrunner Sports all the time. And
Mhm.
they have this 90-day, no bullshit money back guarantee, basically. And
Nice.
like I could wear the shoes for 89 and a half days, return on the 90th day and get my money back. I've
Yeah.
never done it because I just love their customer service and they really go the extra mile for me, no pun intended, to be able to do that. But I think that is a great example, I think, of like how I think you've been so successful at getting customers to come back and have a successfully scalable business with it. One thing I wanted to ask you kind of just to shift gears a little bit forward now, I think too, is like, I'm sure, you're at a price point, kind of in that like, I would say most e-com brands maybe are at a little bit lower of a price point, but some brands that are like maybe in the 100, 200, $300 range where someone's not going to be purchasing this product every day. How do you think about, I mean, I think you've mentioned a lot of great strategies already, but how do you think about like, folks are going to be buying a BombTech, club every day. How are you thinking about like getting them to come back? Or generally just be a loyal customer for an extended period of time?
That is tough. I mean, it's we don't. I mean, I always was jealous of these like consumables, like the makeups and whatever the monthly, you know, boxes that are delivered. I'm like, man, that must be easy. Because selling a hard goods tough, because it's a high price point. So there's a lot of research usually, and we don't do a ton of launches. I mean, our last launch we did, it was like 3 years between models, and for me, my whole philosophy is like, hey, we're not going to launch a new product unless it's actually better, which makes it also harder because we're not just churning out new products just to make more money.
Sure.
So it's one of those things where I think if we earn their trust with one product, like the wedges or the driver, over time they'll go play it. They'll be on the course. They'll talk to their buddies, and they'll decide, okay, this is the club for me. And then they'll talk to a customer service. They'll come back, or they'll see, something. Then maybe they'll get the irons, and then maybe they'll get. So once they build out the full bag, because now we've got full sets, that customer can be worth just with one set over like $1,000. And then if we launch a new version every couple of years, maybe they upgrade and get the newest and latest and greatest, which our last launch was our biggest launch ever. We did 238,000 in 24 hours, which was good for us. I was hoping it was more, but it was great. I can't be greedy. So it can be tough, but I think it's just like we do the core fundamentals well over a sustained period of time. Therefore, we've earned the right to sell them other product when they're ready. But we can't twist their arm and say, hey, you just bought a driver, buy a backup one. It's just, it doesn't work like that. And for whatever reason, I think with although the sales cycle's long, we have enough product SKUs and different products to fill out a bag that our repeat order rates, depends on the year, but it's like high 20s. I think it's had years where it's higher, where we launched different colors and, different finishes and different stuff. But yeah, we just got to keep wowing them on a day-to-day consistent basis. So when they are ready to add that next set or whatever, we've earned the right. And I think that's the only way to look at it. So a lot of this stuff is like high level strategy of how we think of it. And then just fundamental things we want to do consistently,
Totally. I think that's the right approach. I love that you say, earn the right to be able to resell to them. And I think a lot of this that you've mentioned, like even the way that you just think about retention in general, like it's sometimes maybe hard to put on a P&L in a really linear fashion, how this all comes together. It's the word of mouth, it's the different touch points, the videos that they're getting, the communications from CS, like all these different things play into that entire experience. And like I think what really creates loyalty is sometimes investing in the unscalable things too. I'm curious, I think like when you talk to like CMOs or like founders of like D2C companies, they typically fall in like one of two camps. I think is like looking at customers as like there's a break even point or like a profitability number that they're looking at versus like the physical relationship that they have with the customer. And like I know that can really make or break your ad spend, how you think about acquiring customers and really scaling a business. Was that a challenge for you at all, or like were you always sort of like in this long-term view that like you knew if you did those things right that the customer would always just come back and that would fall in place naturally?
No, we didn't always know. I mean, luckily, so when you manufacture your own product, it is a cash flow beast. It takes a lot of capital to run, a high seven figure ecom brand when you manufacture your own stuff and the lead times are long. So to say it's easy and doesn't take a lot of cash is difficult. But, we've been fortunate that we've been very profitable on day one ads. Since 2000, whenever we ran that first ad, even when I was doing it and sucked at it, we were still profitable on first sale. We've had years where we're more profitable than others on sales. But, COVID has been good to golf and e-commerce. I think I started a golf brand when it was a bad idea to start a golf brand. And then timing became good. So I think a lot of this was like, we didn't follow any trends because once you try to follow a trend, it's too late.
Right.
And, we kind of were, I was definitely lucky on timing too, because I started when it really didn't exist. I started like, I think Facebook ads probably existed. I didn't know about them, but I started early days Facebook when, you could run the world's worst ad and spend $1 and get $5 back.
I
That was
remember
the
those
glory
times. Yep.
days. I wish you had more product, but I didn't have the cash to do it. So yeah, we've always tried to, I'm such a conservative founder, and, it took me 4 years and a lot of working capital loans to get to a point where I was debt free. And that was a really freeing moment. And that was one of the reasons I sold it too, because to keep doing the volumes we were doing, we're doing POs that were huge. And I personally would have had to take on probably some debt or at least run real thin. And I was like, I've been doing this for 10 years. I just wanted to do this. I love it. I don't want to do it if it causes me stress,
Exactly.
So a little bit of it was definitely right timing, but I didn't really, and this is all me being naive. It was like kind of beautiful that I didn't know how much capital you would need, or I would have probably never started. When I started selling product, I go, where's the money? Because I was like, shit, we got to go make more product. Where's all the money? And luckily, my parents gave me 10 grand, which I paid back. And then I did like 300 grand of PayPal loans back in the day. And, once I got debt free, I was like, wow, this feels good. And now I'm in a position where I totally cashed out, but I'm still on salary and doing what I love. And so for me, it's the best case scenario. I don't know if I answered your question at all, but yeah, we were profitable. And we haven't been in a spot yet, and I hope we don't get there with ad costs going up, where we've said, okay, we have to lose money on the first sale and make it on the second. We've always been profitable and run a really high return on ad spend. I think because the offer is good, the brand and the word of mouth, and it's just also time. So, and anything in life is, I wouldn't say, I don't know what percent's timing, but timing is a big piece of the success.
100%. I think, it's always, I think, a balancing scale of like, sometimes you have a brand that just can't be profitable on the first sale because of, you sell too tight of margins or such a low AOV. I think there's a lot of factors that go into that. But I think what you mentioned too, like the risk reward of having a mix of like debt versus just getting out at the right time, I think is something that a lot of founders like struggle to figure out is like, taking on an aggressive, debt structure can be really, really beneficial if you have all those things in place. But like at the same time, like it could be a wrong time to actually do that. And I think right now, like especially, uncertainty around, where this economy is headed, like I think there's some factors there. I think a lot of founders are kind of trying to figure out right now, to be honest. But as we kind of wrap up, I feel like I've learned a lot. Just I think how you've thought about this retention kind of network with BombTech. But do you think that customer retention is easier today with the advent of all these different technologies, or do you think it actually is more difficult today to acquire but retain customers than it might have been in years past?
I think people are more distracted now, for sure. So maybe some of the efforts we make today are less impactful because they just have so much stuff. There's so many apps, so many things on their phone. Because some of the stuff early days were new and novel, and although they were authentic, seemed potentially have more impact. So I think it's just a long term. Can you do any of the things that you really believe in for a sustained period of time? Is really the key. So I mean, I hate to always like say today, because any brand could start doing this or start doing that, but it's like you may not be able to do it because over the last 3 years you you weren't caring. So it's more of like I don't, tools and apps are funny because I'm like the anti-app tool guy. You need
Sure.
them to get the job done. And I think it's just like how authentic is the message. And one thing maybe to talk about too is like I have also accidentally attached myself to the brand early days. And that was one thing too. It made it more personal, just like, and that was because I just wanted to do that and had to do it because I was only one. So it's like a lot of these things were accidental. And it's like, yeah, the technology may be easier to do a post-purchase thank you or whatever, or text or email. But just because more people can do it, they're probably still using it the wrong way and don't care. So if you do care, really, then yeah, you'll be successful either way. So I don't know. I don't know if that's a good way to answer it. But yeah, I think e-commerce, if I started today, I don't know if it'd be harder. I think the cost to advertise were harder, but I wasn't even using ads when I started. So I think I'm glad I started when I did. And it may be hard to start now and cut through the noise.
Mhm.
So I think it's timing and just doing what you like. At the end of the day, it's like do what you like and it'll never feel like work. And then you can do the shit that's not scalable and you actually care about. But if you only do it for money, I think you'll never win, and you'll never, regardless of how good the tools are and the apps, it's not gonna work.
Totally. I think that that's an important principle to always carry through. It doesn't matter when you start a brand, like you need to be in it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
I think like there are, exceptions to the rule where it was purely financial and it all worked out. But like a lot of times I think those intentions can fizzle out pretty quickly or you kind of lose the passion. I think that
Yeah, they
you would have
probably. I
had.
mean, I may have been too naive and should have had more a business plan put together. I think it's just more of like, will you stick with it if it becomes hard? And I think every business has many hard moments, and maybe more hard moments than easy. So therefore, you may just not be as willing to keep with it for the 10 years. You may be done in a year or 6 months because you really just weren't in it. That's all.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that that's a great kind of way to, I think, summarize kind of like this discussion here. And as we kind of wrap up too, I know you're up to more things than BombTech now. You mentioned, some other ventures there. What are you up to now besides, your kind of day job with BombTech?
Yeah, the kids and wife are sick of me because I'm home all the time. So no, I mean, so I'm still doing running BombTech, and I do have definitely more mental free time. So I'm helping my partner Chris, who's actually my first employee at BombTech, with our agency. We've got an email agency, eComm Growers. We're a Klaviyo agency, which has been a really interesting business. We've been running that. I mean, it's fairly old now, 2017 till now. So we just help ecom brands with their email, or ecom brands with their email marketing, Klaviyo and SMS, which has been really fun. And then recently, I don't know why I did this. This is just one of these things where I've never done it and I'm naive and I want to try it. I started my own blog, sullytyler.com, and I really have never had a pure content site. And I'm trying just to see if I can, this is like old school, but make SEO optimized content and get traffic and monetize in that way. And I think I'm doing it because it's something I've never done, and I like to learn stuff, and I go through these moments in time where I'm like, I just got to work on something new. And it's like, I think that's one of the reasons I sold BombTech too. Is like I had been doing it for so long. I have the right people in the right place, and this is something new. So it's sullytyler.com is my blog, and just having fun with it. I've got 100 blog posts written. I didn't write them all myself, but some really pillar posts about like how I did that launch of 240K in a day. Just trying to document and have fun with it, and see if we can make some money in a different channel. I'm no TikTok guy, so I know what I'm good at. Not, Although TikTok's big for BombTech, I'm not like the TikTok expert or things like that. But yeah, no, I'm just doing that, and ski season's coming up, and doing podcasts, living the
I
dream.
love it, dude. I love it. Well, I know this is definitely, I think, how many episodes of podcast have you been on now? It's been well over 100. Are you keeping
It's
tabs
something
on?
great. It's something crazy, dude. I don't know. It just started, and then I like really enjoyed them. It's like, and this is like one of those things where I can't outsource it, and I enjoy it. So I was like, I just want to do more of this, and usually, if I do it well, it has an impact on the businesses in general. So like, there's something to be said about figuring out what you can outsource and going in on more of that. And I thought about starting a podcast, and I'm not organized enough to do it consistently on that side, but I can always guest do it, guest podcast. So yeah, it's been fun, and I appreciate you having me, and hopefully some value for the listeners. I know it's probably not as tactical and deep in the weeds, but man, once I got out of the weeds of the really small tactics and just looked at a higher level strategy, it just like it became much easier. It just like, because you can get so stuck, and I think because it's e-commerce is tech based, it's like you get so stuck in these apps and things that are tools, and they're great, but you got to use them the right ways.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I think I think the conceptual stuff that we talked about here is really the principles that are so foundational to building a successful e-commerce brand. And it doesn't matter when you start. I think these things still apply today here in 2022, and they will in the future as well. And it's a great story, man. I really appreciate you sharing it with us and just kind of getting to learn a little bit more about how you see the world. I'm really excited, to see where BombTech continues to grow. And I think also just, for our listeners to be able to pull away some of those kind of best practices that you kind of use as you scale the business. And one final thought too, I just wanted to add to the podcasting is I have this belief that I think that founders, should be doing more of this, documenting their journey, sharing it with others. I think it's great for us to learn from in the community, but also like it's a lot of great benefits. I think that we're seeing a lot of these next generation of founders getting from it. It's like the opportunity to attract new talent or funding or just sharing their journey and being able to acquire new customers. Like all these different things can just happen from opening up and sharing. And I super appreciate you kind of sharing the journey with us. It's been super insightful.
Thanks for having me.